Cambrian Explosion.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to our second episode of the 2024 of Cambrian Explosion. I'm here with my good friends, Yawar and Nabeel, and we're going to be talking about uh, EVs today and whether we should buy one in 2024. And yeah, so please take it away.
Hey everyone, how are you doing? We've been going through exploring climate technology and what's happening in on the climate side of things. We started with microplastics last time. Now we're checking how bad or how good Teslas are, and whether or not we should buy one this year, and what the Canadian government is doing policy-wise around electrical vehicles. So we wanted to discuss that and get you a little more informed about it. I'm curious, Yawar, would you buy a Tesla today?
Hey guys, that's an interesting question. No, actually, I don't drive, so I wouldn't buy a car today. But if the opportunity, if I did, I probably wouldn't go for a Tesla because it's a bit too expensive for me. So I would probably spring for maybe a cheaper hybrid.
I'm just worried about the Tesla overlords. I was just concerned about what's going to happen to me if I buy one, and I have no idea how to drive one properly or actually what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, if you buy a Tesla, I've heard it on good authority that you have to join the church of Elon Musk, our Lord and Master, and you have to worship at his altar and sacrifice three lambs per week to keep the Tesla running on the blood of the goats.
And
No, I'm
and
just
ha-
kidding.
and have an X account as well. Like
You have to have an X account as well,
yeah,
and you have to have a blue check.
absolutely.
Every Tesla will come with a blue check.
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah, if we advertise that, who knows? The sales might increase.
Okay, we better stop talking about Teslas because their marketing department might come after us, especially with what happened with the Netflix movie Leave the World Behind,
What
which if
happened?
you haven't watched, there's a scene there with some Teslas that the Elon Musk and the marketing people at Tesla will not be very happy about that. So just not to give away too much spoilers.
Well, they say any news is good news in marketing, so sometimes that works too.
True, true.
I bet that was sponsored. There's no way that they filmed that entire scene without thinking there would be any repercussions. So that had to be sponsored. They knew exactly what they were doing.
I wouldn't be surprised if there's some kind of lawsuit coming up for that.
Yeah, let's actually broaden the definition, as you said, from
Mhm.
Tesla to electric vehicles, but also non-electric vehicles in the sense of non-ICE internal combustion engine, because
Correct.
it's not just battery-powered vehicles. It's also new types of vehicles such as hydrogen-powered are coming into the market as well. So it's a broader set than just the ICE internal
Right.
combustion engine vehicles, um, and these vehicles come with their own challenges as well. Like just as an example, I have no clue how to find a technician to work on a vehicle like this. Like, are there people in the market who can fix cars? Is it commonly possible to do, or do you end up with that same Apple story where you have to take the Tesla or your electric vehicle to your approved dealer and worker who charges a leg and a mouth to repair the car like
Mhm.
Apple does, or can you just go take it to a normal technician, which I don't think is possible at the moment.
And how would that work with EU's right to repair laws?
Yeah, those are interesting questions, and
Interesting, right?
yeah, what
I
is
think
Canada going to do?
CAA can actually charge your EV. So if you do have a problem and you get stuck in the middle of the road, if you have CAA at least. Uh,
No, but you also mentioned that your uncle was telling you about Tesla's getting hit and being out of commission because the battery goes out. So it's also repair of the battery, not just charging. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
so in that specific story, it just depends where you get hit with your Tesla. So for example, if you're hit on the right side, apparently um it could destroy the entire car. There's no way of repairing it. So yeah, you're right. In that sense, you just lost your entire car because of that one accident in that one spot, and it's because it's electric, right? So you've built a car that's built on wiring and essentially going off charge. So it's
Mm.
all interconnected inside, right? It's not like a car where you can just sort of replace some parts and you have a brand new vehicle. You damage it at a certain place, and all that money you've put into it, and any
Right.
sort of money you put into making it look nicer is just gone.
Mhm.
Um,
Right, but these are problems with newer technologies that get improved over time, right? Like, so especially with government regulation and policies put in place
mm.
should improve the situation in the future, perhaps. Just to give you an example, with internal combustion engines that run on fossil fuels, over time, we've seen, because of stricter regulations, that they've greatly improved their exhaust, um, uh, fossil fuel, the dirty exhaust problem, right? They've cleaned up their exhaust thanks to developing newer technologies in internal combustion engines. So, what kind of, Nabil, I think you've been doing a little bit of research on this. What kind of policies are we looking at for electric vehicles going forward?
The government has been doing a double-sided approach. They're both working on supply and on demand side of things. So on the first, let's tackle the supply side, then we'll talk about the demand side. On the supply side of things, there's they're putting in place new factories for EV manufacturing and trying to turn Canada into a hub for battery manufacturing and EV related components. We have a bunch of resources. We have lithium, we have cobalt, we have the manpower, we have the investment available, and we have the market as well. Because down south we have the US, which is a big car manufacturer itself, and we can sell batteries to the US. So there's a policy of putting in place the required demand, and that's not just on the consumer side; it's also on the public transport side of things. So all buses in the future are going to be all public transport is right now. Everything that's being sourced is electric right now, and there's also work in place to convert the routes and the charging, putting place charging stations for those buses and that electrical vehicle switch over in transportation that's happening over the next 2 3 years. So that's kind of like the demand side. There's sorry, the supply side. There's a supply of electric vehicles and related components and the manufacturing of it that's being put in place. On the flip side, the other thing that the government is doing is that they put in place the 2035 policy of no new cars, no new ICE cars, ICE being internal combustion engine cars from 2035. So that means that on the demand side of things, people are going to be buying more electric vehicles in the future, which will create a demand for these products. And the hope is that with both demand supply being fulfilled and a greater demand, it's going to drive the price of some of these products down as well, because they're
Yes, but
manufactured.
I guess the question I have is do we have enough infrastructure that will help sustain that goal that the government has to convert all these cars over to EVs? Because right now, if your car breaks down somewhere, it's a lot of problem for you to get it to a charging station, let alone having a bus full of people that, you have a range on a bus, suddenly the heater's on, it's taking up more charge, and then the bus stops before you can get to a nearby charging station.
I think that raises a bunch of questions, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the infrastructure. It's, well, what are the options of vehicles that are available to an end consumer? because we can't all be driving Teslas. There's other players in the market,
Right.
but who are they? How good are they? What's the range that each vehicle has? What's the service level that each company provides? What's the
Right.
speed of charging? What's the grid coverage? What's the pricing structure around charging as well?
How reliable is the vehicle in terms of like what Mahwish said? How, breaking down, and how will it interact with various real world conditions, like, a sudden, snowstorm in Canada? Will Does it break down, or how do you get it started again? That kind of question comes up because
Um, if I remember correctly, your husband once, Mavish, drove and did an experiment around comparing EVs and ICE vehicle cars. What happened?
Yes. So he's done 10 years in in the car industry and in financing and just sales. And he drove, I think, one of his clients' cars. It was an EV. Was about 2 hours away, and because he didn't want to lose charge, he was very stressed. And to be honest, he didn't put the heater on, and Canadian cold. That's very brutal.
Yeah.
Like anything to do with the car, music, heated seats, took up more charge and resulted in less power for the car compared to if he had just driven a regular car to that place and back.
Mhm.
And he actually measured the amount of charge that he consumed versus how much power a regular car with gasoline would take
Yeah.
over that 2 hour period because he had to drive back to the dealership in a regular car. And he was able to, put on the heater and the heated seats and music and still use less power than that of an EV. So, he had that stress, he had that thing because he couldn't, again, he was driving a client car and he couldn't have it break down in the middle of the road while driving somewhere 2 hours away. So when you're buying an EV, you have to change your life around. Where are the charging stations? What will you do if your car breaks down? When you go to the charging station, how many kilowatts does it provide your car? Because if they don't provide what the manufacturer advertises, 150 kilowatts, your car could take more than 30 minutes to charge up, and that's something you can ask the charging stations. You can ask them how many kilowatts does your charging station provide. If it's less than 150, then that means your car could take over an hour to charge. So your life
Mhm.
really does change in terms of buying decision, right? Like if you're going somewhere for a trip, how long is your car going to last? It's not just about is my gas going to run out. It's like it's my car is literally going to break down. It's not going to run on fumes. It's got no charge left, right? So it really does change how you would live your life. So, goes back to would you be able to, with kids, with a family, be able to support that kind of purchase at this point, right? Because they don't, again, I personally feel they don't have the infrastructure right now to sustain what people need to keep going in their daily lives, if that makes sense.
I'm hearing a few things here. First is that there's definitely some technical challenges such as range, grid selection, availability. I'm also hearing that there are some challenges around the emotional piece of it because you don't want to get trapped. There's a fear element of it, and then I'm hearing a third financial element to it. Well, how much is it going to cost to maintain? How is it going much going to is it going to cost to upkeep? And to that financial element, I also want to add, like, at the end of the day, you're also making a choice between buying an electric vehicle versus a normal combustion engine vehicle. And so resale value starts coming in, leasing options starts coming in, financing options. Are there any special financing options for that the government has put in place for EVs, or are manufacturing of offering some special leasing or financing options? And those are very interesting questions, in my opinion.
Yes, and then I'm just going to add on to that and say, are you really saving money? Right? Because if you're buying an EV, that's more expensive than a regular car, and you're not going to see the savings on what you would have spent on gas unless you're really driving that car for several years. You don't get into an accident. You're maintaining it well, all those things. So it will save you money, but it won't save you money short term, right? So there are benefits. I'm not going to say I'm 100% against it, but it's not going to save you money right away as you would think, right? So that's part of the challenge as well.
Yeah, just to be fair, let me add something here. We've been discussing purely electric vehicles up until now, but you will note that in the Canada policy, they're talking about by 2035, the goal is to have own solely electric, or they say explicitly plug-in hybrids and hydrogen-powered vehicles. But so just leaving aside hydrogen-powered for just for this moment, if we look at plug-in hybrids are what? They are hybrid between electrical powered and gasoline powered. So I think those actually probably offer the best mixture in terms of performance and reliability right now, as well as, of course, climate friendliness.
Yeah, the hybrids are a very, very interesting option from that perspective.
Right.
But I think you also mentioned that word climate friendliness. It's interesting to actually dive a little deeper into the climate friendliness piece of it, because there are hidden climate costs to electric vehicles as well. We talked
Mm.
about microplastics last time. My,
Mhm.
electric vehicles are heavier and they do generate more microplastics just because of the wear and tear of the tires, just as an example, right? The electric batteries are toxic in nature as compared to, you know fossil fuels are have their own issues with them, but so do electric batteries. They are toxic in nature and they're not usually recyclable. That's not something that's there at the moment. And then finally, even on the charging station, if you're going to put up a charging station which is electric and then put a diesel generator behind it, to make the electricity available, is that really truly electric? And so there's questions around, well, is it actually more environmentally friendly? And if not, when does it become more environmentally friendly? Because I think part of the government's thought process is that as the industry is put in place, it will become more efficient.
Yes, and you're also spending a lot of materials and resources to build these charging stations, which, you have to beg the question, are those resources being used in an environmentally friendly way to create all these infrastructures uh, around these EVs?
Yeah, it's clear that one thing you need absolutely for sure in an electric vehicle powered future is you need uh, very, very advanced facility of storage and distribution of electricity throughout your entire, country, if you want to have electric vehicles in your country, because electricity is going to be the key driver and the key limiting factor of this entire system.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I'm hearing a lot of negative comments about EVs. I'm wondering if, since I'm on that side, but I'd love to hear from the both of you. What are, your top three positive things? If, someone was to purchase an EV today, what would those be?
However, you want to go first?
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, the first one is greenhouse gas emissions. You're not going to have greenhouse gas emissions from your vehicle. Although, again, you can argue that where is the electricity for your vehicle coming from? Is it coming from a source which is burning greenhouse gases, releasing greenhouse gases, or is it coming from a clean source, like, say, renewables or nuclear? But again, so that's if you narrowly look at it like that, your vehicle is not emitting greenhouse gases. Another thing that the electric vehicle people like is the performance is really nice compared to the gas powered engines, and the noise level as well is much better, because in electric vehicles you don't have like literally an exploding a chamber filled with little explosions of gas which are driving your cylinders, right? you have just electricity running through your engine, which is turning your car wheels. So it's much smoother, much more silent. The acceleration is much better. So performance-wise as well, I've heard that. Obviously, I'm not a driver, but I've heard that it feels much nicer to drive electric.
I feel that there's a couple of things more future looking that I'm looking forward to. One is, as electric, you know, when the first cars came into the market, as compared to horse-drawn carriages, there were huge problems back then as well.
Mm.
And over time, those issues have been solved and improved upon, and that only happens once the industry is in place. Like, you need to put the industry in place to find those macro and micro improvements in the technologies. So I think one is, you got to start somewhere, and we're at least starting somewhere. A policy is in place. Is it the best? I don't know, but we have a policy in place that will at least push society in that direction. The other piece of it is that, following that, I think a lot of the manufacturers are going to follow suit by wanting to sell more electric vehicles, and they're going to start putting in place financing options for electrical vehicles. So if, with those financing options, if my electric vehicle is cheaper than my ICE-based vehicle, or the other options that I have in the market with the financing, I'll buy an electric vehicle. I'll give it a shot. I'll see what it is all about. I want to feel good about it as well, that I'm making a difference in terms of my contribution to fixing the world. So I think there's definitely future looking. There's opportunities both from an emotional, financial, and technological perspective within what's happening. What about you, Mavish? Your top three.
Well, I'm kind of against buying EVs. So for me, the top three for not buying them is just, the range anxiety, as you mentioned, just sort of replanning your entire life around making sure that that car is going to run for you for that day.
Yeah.
And it's just more about, when you start adulting and you're out of university, you have so many things to do in a day. You don't want to think about, that my car is going to have a problem when it's completely fine, right? It's just more about, I have to now have an extra thing on my mind. How much range will it have? Where is my nearest charging station?
Mm.
Will that charging station have enough enough charge for me? Will I have to wait an hour for it to charge? That changes my entire daily routine. It means I can do less things. So for me personally, for those reasons, right now, based on the infrastructure in this conversation, I probably would not buy an EV today, even if it does give me convenience in some other areas, like you both mentioned. But I'd like to know about both of you hearing this conversation. Would you buy an EV today?
I'm really, really waiting for the financing option. So I am in the market to buy a car right now, and I am exploring this question. And at the moment, I am looking at the government to provide some financing options, because I think that's buying a second-hand EV to me doesn't really make sense, because you don't know on battery usage and quality of batteries that are in the second-hand EV. You want to get a new one, just because you want fresh batteries, and batteries are a huge cost of the EV.
Yeah.
And so, keeping that in mind, I would prefer to buy a new one, but it needs to be within my budget. Um, the other piece of it also is my usage. So if I was driving downtown on the regular, which I don't, I live on the subway. I prefer not driving downtown. It's cheaper, it's less hassle, and I get to do extra work when I'm on the subway, whether it's extra stuff, whether it is sleeping or working. Um, so going downtown, I wouldn't drive a car in any case. It's usually going out of the city that I would use a car. And again, then the range issue comes into play. Like, how much range does the EV actually have? So I'm very double-minded right now, and I think the financing options would be the things that switch me to buying an EV as compared to an electric vehicle.
Yeah, for me, I'm obviously not in the market. I don't drive, so but if I did, then I would probably look at cheaper hybrid vehicle. And in fact, I would probably more seriously think about buying an electric bike because in an urban setting, that's probably more useful to me personally.
Okay. Well, let me before we end the podcast, I'd love to ask a different question. So if you did have the financing and you did have the right environment and you were in the market for a luxury car, would you buy I have very limited knowledge of cars, but I'm just gonna say, let's say you have a Lexus or a Mercedes-Benz or something versus an EV today, knowing that your situation, you are in the market and the financing is there, would you buy an EV, right?
If money is not any problem, if I
Yeah,
can spend and as much money
it's
as I
not.
want.
It's not.
Yeah.
You're just saying, you know what, I'm looking into upgrading, and you're that situation in your life. Would you buy an EV in that case?
I think I would embrace the future. I think that there's value in testing new things, particularly when money is not an option, then involvement is much lower. So I think I would. Uh, Yawar, what about you?
I mean, if money is not any, like problem, I can spend as much money as I want. Sure, I'll get a Tesla for my, garage full of cars. That's fine. I'll add it to
Uh,
my garage
and
with
Mavish,
my Porsche and my Lamborghini.
Uh,
Mavish, what about you?
I think the thing that attracted me initially, before all the other challenges, was just the driverless aspect of it. Like there's more ways you can be hands off with the Tesla. So those were things. If I had the money, if I wanted to check it out and see if the new way to the future, I would give it a try. If money is not an option, and
Mhm.
you have a garage where you can fit with 1 to 2 cars, why not just give it a try? I was in Europe a few years ago, and I did drive in an Uber, which was a Tesla. And it was very, very cool. It's kind of one of those things where it's such a luxury, where you're like, wow, I'm really in something that is new technology, right? And
Yeah.
I think that's something which all of us want to experience when you have that new tech, when you're heading into an era where suddenly technology is booming so much, a Cambrian explosion, if you will, of tech. And yeah, so it's definitely interesting to try out if you have the resources.
Yeah, self-driving is a whole another thing that we haven't even talked about. By all accounts, Tesla self-driving is not really good, and it can actually be pretty dangerous and deadly. And Tesla apparently tells everybody, hey, don't actually use the self-driving feature, which we heavily advertise. Make sure that you always keep your hands on the steering wheel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 That
It's a
that that's another question. But
Yeah, that's a whole other thing. Yeah.
it's a whole liability question, legal question as well on there, which we're not going to get into. I think we're on time for the episode. Um, I think that covers most of what we wanted to cover in the episode, right?
yeah, definitely. But if any people who are listening want us to talk about that topic of driverless cars, please let us know. Send us a message, a comment, and don't forget to subscribe and follow for more content. And let us know again what you think. We love feedback, and that's how we grow, and that's how technology iterates and innovates. So that's what we're all about. And next time, I think we're going to be talking about jobs in 2024, whether AI is going to be taking your job. And other than that, it's been a pleasure to do this podcast with you both this wonderful afternoon.
Very cool.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Keep tuning in for more great episodes. We look forward to some of the stuff that's coming up this year. It's going to be great. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you for your time. Cheers, and till next time. Bye bye.
Bye.